Welcome everyone to today's special event, Fad or Future. For this event, we're going to be discussing new buzzwords, new trends in the tech industry, and then we're going to be debating whether or not these buzzwords or trends are actually just a fad, or if we should expect to see and use them in the future. So with us today for this debate is going to be one of Infotech Design Solutions system architects, Justin Callahan. Justin has over a decade of IT experience, including Microsoft and WatchGuard certifications. He's always had a great interest in new and upcoming technology, and for that reason we're expecting to get a lot of good, valuable insight with him today. So Justin, how are you doing?
Pretty great. It's Friday.
Yes, Friday is always a good day. Yeah, yes. So we're going to go ahead and kick it off with virtual or augmented reality in the workplace.
Ooh. All right, so that's a hard one. VR, I definitely think, is going to be more in the future than augmented reality, especially in the workplace. Once they kind of settle in on an input, it's hard to use a keyboard when you can't actually see the keyboard when you're typing, just for reference.
Mm-hmm.
But once they work on the input, then the opportunities are pretty limitless because you're not restricted to one or even two monitors. You can have monitors literally 360 around your head. You can constantly be receiving data. Just the question is how to input data.
Okay, so would you so you would say that more virtual reality is the future, while augmented reality could be is more of a fad, or just should stick to its own industry, not really in the workplace, not technically a fad, but just more of outside the workplace?
Yeah, augmented reality is going to be more industry specific.
Okay.
There's definitely going to be some industries, for example, any interior design or a home, business, any construction environments.
Electrical, yeah.
Augmented reality will be huge. Mechanics, electrical engineering, things like that will definitely have a place for augmented reality. But for the mass office spaces, it's really going to be harder for augmented reality to find a home.
Yeah. So one thing I was wondering is when it comes to vertigo, I know a lot of people when they're using virtual reality, they suffer from a lot of, the vertigo, kind of getting a little nauseous and things like that. How do you think that's going to impact it? Is that going to prevent it maybe from happening as soon into the future as we'd hoped? And maybe they'll have to progress and work on that to see if it's something that they can actually resolve? Or do you think that's just something that people will have to get past?
Well, I think it's going to just be the new thing that we're going to have to be aware of. When people started typing on keyboards and laptops 8 hours a day straight, it spurred this whole industry of ergonomics, right?
Mm-hmm.
How to actually adjust your body so that you can handle that strain repeated.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing's going to happen. We're going to have also improvements in the quality of the VR is going to reduce vertigo as it becomes more and more realistic, more acclimated for our senses. But then also we're just going to have to, have those breaks, how we're positioned. Maybe even, we could even be leaning back in a more comfortable position when we're in VR. There's a lot of opportunities, and I think we're going to figure that out as VR becomes more popular and more on a regular day use.
Okay, awesome. All right, so the next one that we're going to be discussing is 100% working remotely. Now, I know this may hit you at home or hit us all at home, but do you think it's a fad, or is it possibly the future?
I think working remotely is and pretty much always has been a fad since computers first started coming out and relatively high-speed internet. Working remotely has been capable, but that really requires more personality traits that have people with the ability to, regulate themselves in an environment where they don't have coworkers or they don't have this structured environment. Working remotely requires a lot of self-discipline, and that's more of the impact than I think any technological factor would be.
I agree. I would say that it is more of a fad. I wish it was something that we could expect, but it's really industry specific at that point, guys. There's some industries that you physically cannot 100% work remotely. It's just not going to be possible.
Right.
All right. So the next one we're going to want to discuss is going to be a big buzzword in today's age. It's going to be foldable phones. Is it a fad or is it the future, Justin? I know that you were looking at the new one that was coming out, so I'm interested to know your opinion on this.
I have always been closely following the Microsoft. It's now officially called the Microsoft Neo.
Hmm.
It is going to be coming out in uh, holiday 2020. Definitely excited for this new industry, this new area of technology, but it really is for right now a fad until they can find a reason for it being used. Um, right now, two screens does not give you that much more access. Still, a lot of people have issues with a smaller screen like that. You don't see a lot of people running around with 7 or 8 inch tablets, and that issue is still going to persist. That being said, though, this is kind of the gateway drug, if you will, to more opportunities. Once they work on these, folding or complex screens,
Hmm.
then you lead the entry to more expansion. So you could have, even 2 or 3 screens. And once you get to a size that is more manageable on a regular basis to do actual interaction, then you're going to see I think you're going to see an explosion of usefulness and situations where, okay, pulling out an actual 10, 11 inch screen, you could actually do some serious action with that device.
Yeah, I agree. I was hoping that in this instance I would be, combating you and saying that, well, you would think it'd be the future. I would think it would be a fad. But
Yeah.
I agree that it is a fad, especially with the thickness of some of the phones. Like when they are folded, that's just way too thick for me. To put that in my pocket, to put that anywhere, I can't really operate like that. So I see what you're saying in the future, that maybe when it's almost like a pane of glass, something very thin that is easy to fold, easy to put in your pocket, and almost the same thickness as a regular phone. It doesn't appeal to
Right.
me if it isn't the same thickness as a normal phone. If you were to tell me, okay, the folded phone is going to be the same size as the new iPhone X or something like that, then I would be okay. That's something that I can see myself interested in. But just having double the phone in my pocket, I'm okay. I don't need that much of a bigger screen.
Agreed.
All right, so the next one we're going to be talking about has been around for quite some time. It had a big surge in its name not a couple of years ago when Bitcoin was on the rise, and that is going to be cryptocurrency. So Justin, what is your opinion on cryptocurrency? Is it a fad or is it a future? Is it the future?
So cryptocurrency is very interesting. We've seen so much more interest and it's becoming more mainstream in terms of general consciousness and awareness over the past 2 years, really. Bitcoin in particular has exploded onto the scene with growth. That being said, cryptocurrency in and of itself is more of a fad. It's something that is interesting and has some ideas, but just is still struggling to find a position that is still acceptable and can be mitigated in the international world.
Yep.
Um, that being said, the underlying technology, which is the blockchain technology, is a fundamental shift in how the world manages knowledge and rectifies information. And so there's a lot of other, a lot of companies are starting to talk about using, it's still very much a buzzword, but once we start finding useful iterations of blockchain technology, I really think we're going to start seeing that as the underpinnings of future technologies.
Yeah, I agree. In terms of security, blockchain technology is definitely going to help assist a lot of banks that have been really taking interest in blockchain technology. Now, I know that you're saying that blockchain is going to be the future, crypto will be the fad, but if crypto, as it is, a byproduct of blockchain technology, how can one essentially go about being a fad without the other, with the other being the future?
And honestly, I think sometimes cryptocurrency, with its very, for lack of a better word, strongly felt ideals and its idealized presence in the environment,
Mm-hmm.
It kind of polarizes people to blockchain technology, which can sometimes actually be a detriment,
Mm-hmm.
because whereas blockchain chain technology and information verification processes can be fundamentally good for a lot of technology. Cryptocurrency is kind of either you're for it or against it, and there's not a whole lot of middle ground really right now.
Yeah, not a whole lot of persuasion either. But when it comes
Right.
to maybe when you're thinking about ease of transactions, then yeah. But a lot of people don't really understand the whole use of crypto. So I have to agree with you there. But I would say that crypto is the future, and that's my opinion, guys. But we're gonna move on to the next one. The last thing we're going to be discussing today is going to be quantum computing. Also a very big buzzword in the past 2 to 3 years. It's really now been able to, get some ground with a lot of big companies getting to use quantum computers. But there's not really a whole lot of knowledge on if it's going to be something that's going to be easily accessible to other people in the future, other industries, other companies. But do you think that quantum computing is nothing more than a fad, or is it the future?
Quantum computing is definitely the future. I just don't think it's the future that a lot of people are initially thinking. The fact of quantum computing is it is fundamentally geared towards certain types of computing and not every type. So quantum computing is not going to come about and you're just going to say, all right, my laptop's a quantum computer and that means I can open up 15,000 Excel spreadsheets. That's not really what it's going to be going for. But in terms of AI progression and machine learning, which are two other buzzwords, but in very specific cases, it's going to fundamentally change how that computing gets done. And that's where we're going to really see these life changes that is going to impact people from all different technology involved.
Yeah, I think that was the big issue with quantum computing when it first being spoke about, was that everybody was like, oh, this is just like the fastest computer, we're now going to accelerate to like things that we've seen in sci-fi and stuff like that. But they didn't realize it's something more on a very niche place is where it's going to be used for, and it's not something that we can expect in our homes. I don't think, at least, that I will expect it to be on a that much of a commercial use that people would have them in their homes. I don't think it's going to ever reach that point, but that's my opinion. In future wise, I think it's going to be a future for a lot of big organizations to get to use it for good purposes, simplicity of major calculations. But when it comes to people having them in their homes and having supercomputers essentially that have just that's the fad. I think that people have been trying to ride this train when it comes to quantum computing. So I would agree with you there. But yeah, so is there any last minute things you'd like to discuss before we close out?
No, that was all I had.
Yeah, you did mention a couple of other important topics that we're going to probably touch on in next month. Yes, guys, we'll be doing this every single month. We'll be having this discussion, Fad or Future. It may be with Justin or it may be with somebody else. And he did touch on machine learning and artificial intelligence. So that is definitely one we're going to be touching on, as well as another one. It's going to be autonomous driving. That's going to be a big one. That's a major buzzword in technology, and I'm interested to see how what is said about that. But yes, guys, that will wrap it up. Thank you so much for tuning in.